Shalom. I'd like to start off by giving all glory, honor, and praises to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai Ba'ashem Rachak. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, and salutations to the hopeful elect, the lambs and the sheep of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. And this is going to be part two to a lesson that I did based off of in the first part at least, the movie of Achilles, in which you had a divine warrior who was given a divine or inordinate amount of strength, all right, at his, I want to say at his birth, but as he was a baby, which his mother, I'm just going based off the Greek mythology and whatnot, but his mother, know, dipped him in the river of Styx, and the only part of his body that was left vulnerable was his Achilles because she uh, didn't dip his whole body within the river. Okay, so if any enemy wanted to overcome him, all right, all they had to do was strike him in that part of his body, which is his Achilles. But any other part of his body, he was impenetrable. All right, you could cut him with the sharpest sword, you could shoot him with the sharpest arrow. All right, it wouldn't pierce him. All right, and I use that movie because popular uh, or contrary, I should say, to unpopular belief. Um, the story of Achilles is actually based off Samson. Okay, and what people gonna come to find is that these holy scriptures, the Bible, all right, is not only the standard, but when it comes to all things that we know about this world and the stories that these other cultures derive, it is based off of the accounts that are in the scriptures. All right, from the flood all the way through. All right, these other cultures, all right, take things out of the scriptures and apply it um, within their own foundation. All right, and Samson is a very good example of that. All right, because like Achilles, Samson was gifted with divine strength, and also like Samson, Samson became very arrogant in that strength. Okay, to where he felt like he was untouchable. All right, and anytime that a man or person in general feels like they are untouchable, um, essentially that person is provoking the eyes of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, okay, to where they essentially are putting themselves or establishing themselves on the level of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. All right, and so, as the title reads, Judges 16, Samson and Delilah, a cautionary tale. All right, and real quick, I want to get the definition of what a cautionary tale is. All right, because stories like these in the scriptures, um, obviously are for us to reflect and to learn from, but they also they also caution us that regardless of the calling and the gifts that the Lord has given us, all right, we are still susceptible to um, the things of this world. Okay, we're still susceptible to pride and things that can draw us away from Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. So it says a cautionary tale is a narrative designed to warn the audience about a specific danger, bad behavior, or risky decision. By showing a character who ignores a warning and suffers dire consequences, these stories teach a clear moral lesson about what to avoid. Structure of a cautionary tale. Traditional cautionary tales, often found in folklore and children's literature, typically follow a three-part structure. Number one, the warning. A taboo or danger is clearly stated, e.g., don't talk to strangers, or stay away from the forbidden woods. Number two, the transgression. A character ignores the warnings and performs the forbidden action. Number three, the punishment. The character faces an unpleasant, often exaggerated fate as a direct result of their actions. Okay. And so within the context of Samson, and also, linking it back to the story of Achilles, a woman was a common denominator in both of their downfalls. All right. And because we're going to read within the story of Samson that even in the first verse, we see, and even in the subheading it says Samson's weakness, but we see that Samson had obviously a shortcoming, but he also had a proclivity for just women, okay, and particularly Philistine women, all right, and fortunately for him, his women that he had a proclivity for were women of the rival or enemy nation, okay, to the Israelites at the time, all right, being the Philistines, you know. And this is also a cautionary tale for in today's time of, just because, us as Israelite men are becoming more favorable, all right, in the eyes of heathen women, all right, like the apostles say, these women still should be vetted, okay, from the so-called white woman to the so-called Asian woman to the so-called Indian woman, all the way through. All right, these women are to be vetted. All right, especially the so-called white woman, because hey, as the story goes and what we've got to read, okay, it's a light thing for any woman, okay, even of our own tribes, to turn away from us. All right, but you put a gun up to a woman's head and you offer her, okay, options as far as money and life, and you think that woman is solid, you're thinking that woman is a ride or die. All right, let that woman be put in a life or death situation and see how quick she changed up on you. All right, but to get into the story of Samson, it says in verse 1, it says, then Samson went to Gaza and saw a prostitute there and went into her. The Gazites were told, Samson has come here. So they surrounded the place and waited all night at the gate of the city to ambush him. They kept quiet all night, saying, in the morning, when it is light, we will kill him. But Samson lay resting until midnight. Then at midnight he got up and took hold of the doors of the city gate and the two doorposts and pulled them up, security bar and all. And he put them on his shoulders and carried them up to the top of a hill which is opposite Hebron. All right. And so we can see that, or a display of his might, or Samson was able to um, disarm his enemies. All right, because here his enemies thought that they would be the ones to lie in wait, and when light came, that they would ambush him. All right, and so you know, out of wanting to prove a statement, we see that Samson. It says he took security, bar, and all. And then back then in ancient times, all right, if you didn't have a gate or you didn't have a wall that could fend off, outsiders or, intruders, all right, it left the city in a vulnerable state. And so, you see that through his might, Samson, Samson was able to take away the security of the city, all right, to, basically prove a statement or make a statement. All right. And so these are things that, through his great strength and through his great might, these are things that added to, all right, his pride, all right, his arrogance, all right, dealing with women, all right, I know it doesn't give the body count of Samson, but we could put two and two together, man. Dude was swole, all right. He was a man of the Lord. He was able to speak deep things, almost philosophical things, you know, words of wisdom, and he was strong. So, you know, that made him a magnet for women. All right. On top of that, he could whoop anybody that he wanted. He could whoop his adversaries at the drop of a dime. So, all these things accumulated in his mind, um, and just basically formed more and more pride within him in his spirit. All right. And so verse 4 says, after this he fell in love with a Philistine woman living in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. All right. And to bring it back, the scriptures warns us about not loving things that appertain to the world. And woman is a big thing that appertains to this world. Okay, because a woman is out of a man and a woman, the woman is the most worldly living entity that we can physically see and say, yeah, this person, this person is really all about themselves. Okay, they definitely put themselves first, and they can be very cold and callous. All right. Now, of course, you have men that are of like nature, but the woman is a very good example because going back to the beginning, the woman was put in literal perfect position, okay, by the Most High. And through her pride and through her lust, she still was, you know, essentially taken away, all right, by the serpent, okay, which the serpent was not an actual serpent, but, was a man-like creature, okay, that was able to persuade this woman into going against her husband. All right. Let me just get that real quick. I think that's in Second Timothy, but let me see how it's worded. Adam. Yeah, it's actually First Timothy chapter 2, verse 14. And it's I'm gonna start at verse 13. It says, "For Adam was first formed, then Eve, and Adam was not deceived." All right, meaning he was not the one that was initially tricked, but the woman being deceived was in the transgression. Notwithstanding, she shall be saved in childbearing, if they continue in faith and charity and holiness with sobriety. Okay, so initially it wasn't Adam who was deceived, but it was the woman who was deceived by the serpent. Okay, and through her usurping that authority over her husband, um, it caused Adam to give in to the temptations of her mouth. All right, and the things that she had to say, and the things she had to speak. All right, he began to give an attentive ear. Okay, instead of unto Yahweh, he gave an attentive ear unto his woman, and his woman was dispelling all type of information. Because again, remember it tells us in Sirach, all right, the um the understanding, let me just get it real quick. The understanding of evil is not wisdom. Yeah, here I think this is it. It says the famous line is found in Sirach chapter 19, verse 22, also known as Ecclesiasticus, which states the knowledge of wickedness, yeah, this is it. The knowledge of wickedness is not wisdom, nor is there prudence in the counsel of sinners. Okay. So the woman became a sinner by hearkening unto an entity outside of her husband. All right. By hearkening unto lies. Okay. It says key teachings on wisdom and wickedness, fear of the Lord. True wisdom is defined in the same text as the fear of the Lord and keeping his law, detestable cleverness. This is merely knowing how to do evil or being shrewd in a bad way is not smart. It is abomination. Simple and God-fearing, a person who fears God the Most High with a little understanding is better than a smart person who breaks the law. And that's also a verse that's found in Sirach. Okay, how a person who fears the Most High but has little understanding is better than a smart person who breaks the law. All right, but the point is that it's in the woman to want to ultimately usurp the authority of a man, especially a man that she sees is a man of prominence. Okay, a man that is of stature. All right, a man that actually follows Yahweh by Shemal Shai because it's in the spirit of a woman to want to test those boundaries to see just how, because it's the it's the really the demonic nature. Okay, to see um what boundaries she can not just test, but what boundaries she can overpass. All right, but I'm stopped there though. A lot more to get into on this, but through the spirit, I pray that this is still edifying to the hopeful elect. All right, with that say, shalom. All right, getting all praises, glory, and honor to you, how about Shem Shai, Bashem Rachak double honors once again to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, salutations to the hopeful elect, and to the lambs and the sheep of Yahweh Bashem Shai. All right, until that, with Akim, I say, shalom.